Building a home is one of the single biggest expenses that most of us will ever take. And I know that a lot of us in the modern day world, we always reach out for cement because of the strength and the durability that most of us have associated the building material like cement to be. But I want to offer an alternative. This Tuesday, I made a video detailing how you can go through a step by step process of how to make a Tubali mud brick. This Tubali mud brick is designed by the Hausa communities in Nigeria and also in Niger. Now, I want to share something with you that came to mind, and please be honest with me if you feel like, hey, you've gone off the rails. This doesn't make any sense. You are completely way off on this. One thing my curious mind just wondered so much when I was making this video is the part that I noticed that the conical brick actually, to some degree, it reminded me of the Egyptian pyramid. Now hear me out. Don't cut me off yet. I'm not trying to over exaggerate, but the conical brick, because it has a thick base, that's how it reminded me of the Egyptian pyramid. Because even though the Egyptian pyramid is not conical, it is actually triangle. I understand and I appreciate that. But the foundational physics of it is that they both have a thick base and they both taper towards the top. And then the second thing that also stood out for me so much is, and you'll see when I published a video about how to make the Hausa wall, the Hausa wall is also designed almost in the same way. What do I mean by that? I mean that it has a thick base and then it tapers towards the top. So typically they dig a foundation of around 600 millimeters deep, and then the thickness of the wall is going to also be around 600 millimeters. But then as the wall raises, it starts to taper at the very top, just the same way as the conical Tubali brick is built. It starts to taper. And so you start to look at the wall has a thick base of around 600 millimeters. And then towards the top, that thickness reduces to around 200 millimeters. And to me, I was like, oh my God, that is so interesting. Very interesting because the conical brick has a tapering, which means that when you're making the wall, it almost feels like you're laying thousands of pieces of cone-shaped bricks, which almost translates or almost starts to look like putting together some type of a pyramid in a way, just that it doesn't really have the sharp points. It's a little bit curved. The reason why I was just comparing these two scenarios of the Tubali mud brick, the Hausa Tubali wall, because the Tubali wall is actually named after the mud brick, which is called Tubali. And when you look at that and you look at the Egyptian pyramids, I was starting to compare that because when I was looking at some of the longest standing pieces of architecture that are there even today, you can see that those have lasted like around 500 years to close to 1,000. And there is no question if architecture can last around 500 years to 1,000, that is indeed a long time. Because when today we talk about durability and someone asks you, hey, would you mind if your home lasts up to 500 years? I'm pretty sure some of you will be very, very happy with that choice. True or false? Tell me the truth, right? And that's why a lot of us gravitate towards building techniques like concrete blocks. We also gravitate towards rammed earth because we feel like these are building techniques that to some degree, based on our modern day view of the world and how we appreciate things, is that these two processes have been de-risked because we don't want to take up a technique that has not been de-risked and you're sort of like the first one. I understand because some of us have saved for a very long time. We also do not have unlimited amount of funds. But the reason why I'm bringing this conversation up, it's because I want more and more of us to be willing to take up the risk to actually either do two things. The first one is use that video that I published on the step-by-step process of making a Hausa Tubali mud brick. Use that process to test out this building technique. If you're a new homeowner, you're looking to build, is it possible that maybe you can work with your professional, especially if you're looking for, like, let's say to build with rammed earth? Is it possible that maybe you have your builder build you a sample of a Tubali wall versus also a rammed earth wall? And the reason why I'm saying that, it's because the Tubali, honestly, it's truly, truly strong. It's truly strong from the way that it is formed, but it is truly strong because there is real evidence, even living today, living proof that shows that the pieces of architecture made from the Tubali mud brick are indeed of very, very good and strong quality. Now, if you don't believe me, how about you go and Google these three types of architecture, where you'll be able to see the actual evidence of how the Tubali has sustained these pieces of architecture. The first one is Gidan Rumfa. This is Emir's palace in Kano, Nigeria, and it is estimated to have been built around 1463 to around 1499, and it has existed for well over 560 years. And then look at a piece of architecture like Gobirao Minaret. This is in Katsina, Nigeria, and it is said to have been built around 1445 to 1495, and it has also lasted a little over 550 years. And then we do have another piece of architecture. There is the ancient Kano city walls, famously called Ganua in Hausa. These are in Kano, Nigeria, and they're said to have been built around 1095 all the way to 1134, meaning they have lasted a little over 900 years. And then there's a beautiful piece of architecture. You can look at museums like Gidan Makama. You can also look at the African traditional architecture in Jos, Nigeria. The photos from there, they actually expose how the Tubali mud bricks have been layered. And these are some of the pictures. As you can see, it clearly shows how, you layer the bricks bit by bit. And like I said, this is a video that I'm actually working on, and I'm very soon going to be putting it out, hopefully this coming week. With that said, I want to come back to reassure you this is actual real evidence that shows that the architecture built from this type of mud brick actually do last and can last. I think the main question here is more of how can we actually start to incorporate this building technique into our building today? How do we start to embrace such indigenous knowledge and teach it to the future generation? I think that those are some of the important questions, and I think the best way to do so is to use very simple resources like the one that I have shared that shows the step-by-step process of actually making the mud brick. And I'm about to make the video where I'm going to also show you how to make the mortar, but also how to lay out the bricks. And I'm going to run more experiments on maybe different types of like soil mixtures versus different types of organic matter and different levels or quantities of water, just to see how that also impacts the quality of the brick. And if I can do it at the comfort of my home, and I am not an architect, I'm not a physicist, but I am a student of indigenous architecture knowledge from our indigenous African architecture, I want to assure you that you can as well do it. The key ingredient is just a little bit of passion and fire, and you're just right there. Because even the soil you can source for free. Okay, the other thing I want to share with you to give you a little bit of peace of mind, that we're looking at a genuine and honest and legit building technique that can revolutionize even how we maybe make mud bricks today. Because if you look at the whole process of making mud bricks today, I think it's fair to say that we heavily lean towards rectangular mud bricks. And it's because I think for a very long time, we have been taught that rectangular mud bricks are the way to go because it is easy to layer them, but also automatically we tend to assume that there is more stability in that. But what if we're wrong? What if we're wrong all along? And what if maybe the better way to build is by having a conical mud brick? Because hear me out. The fundamental physics of it, where you have thicker base and then the brick tapers towards the very top, just similar to the Egyptian pyramid, where you have a thick base and then it tapers to the top, even though that's a rectangular shape and we're looking here at a conical shape. One of the research pieces of articles that I was reading, it was attributing the longevity of the Egyptian pyramids, which are now said to have lived a little over 4,500 years, which to me is just absolutely mind-blowing to think, is the fact that they have this thick base, and with the thick base, it creates more stability, especially if the top tapers, just a little bit. And I think that could be the same concept here that the Hausa people had. I think they were really onto something that we're just about to unlock. what if this is the future of mud bricks, guys? I feel super excited. I'm really trying to get into like the actual physics and learning about it and fully understanding and digesting it so that I can come and share with you at a very layman's language and level, just like me, because that's how I like to teach it. And so this is also a humble request for you guys to just come back and give me feedback. Do you guys think we're onto something here? Do you think I'm just like, oh my god, your curiosity has just taken you into an alternate universe? You are completely off the rails and this doesn't make any sense. Just be honest with me, guys. Especially because the other thing that I had the privilege to do was to talk to a friend who had actually gone to Jannah, in Mali. And they had the privilege to actually see and touch and learn about how you make the mud bricks that have built the Jannah Mosque in Mali, which is the largest earthen architecture structure in the world, which is, oh my God, look at all this goodness that we have in the motherland, guys. I'm sorry. It's just so hard to contain my joy when I unlock a lot of this information. My mind really tends to wander, but genuinely, it just gives me so much happiness and joy to know that there was so much science and physics. And I think some of it, if we're able to unlock, it could genuinely revolutionize how we actually build today, especially when we're talking heavily about art and architecture. And the reason why this topic also really excites me is also simply because if a lot of people these days are really running towards rammed earth, I understand why. A lot of us are still gravitating towards the concrete block, and I understand why. These are two beautiful building techniques that have been de-risked. So there's no a lot of risk, there's no a lot of guessing because other people have already proven this. But even with the Tubali, it has been proven. It's just that I think the application of it in the modern day world is very minimal. And I think that is what I want to advocate for, to bring back, to help rebuild that confidence and that degree of excitement, like the way I have this excitement. I would like for other people to feel this type of fire, this type of curiosity and this type of willingness to say, you know what, I am fully convinced and I am going to actually take this knowledge and I'm going to apply it and I'm going to run a science experiment for me and my children so that they can present in school, or I want to actually test this out and teach it. And so if you're out there, if you're a physicist, if you're a geologist, if you are an architect, any professional that really can help contribute to help understand, especially the physics of why a thicker base that tapers at the top when it comes to putting together a conical mud brick, but also building a wall altogether. Help me understand. I know I have a lot of research right now that I am just going through and trying to make sense of it all. But I think iron always sharpen iron, and two heads are better than one. And I would love to get the perspective and the understanding of others as it pertains to this. Do you guys genuinely think we are onto something here? Especially because when I was talking to my friend and we were talking about the cylindrical brick, we were talking about the Tubali brick, and we were talking about the Egyptian pyramid, we were blown away. We were like, oh my God, maybe there is a different way to make mud bricks. Maybe this is the future. So give it to me straight up. I'm a big girl. I can take it. If you think I'm completely losing my head here, because, oh my God, the way I see the world is so interesting sometimes. And if you are a builder, you're an architect, you're a developer, do you genuinely think that this could be the future? If you look at the Tubali mud brick as well, the way it is built itself, there's a lot of soil fermentation, and then there's a part where you also add organic matter. And that also helps to really build the compressive strength of the mud brick. But also there's something unique that happens. A lot of you have asked me how the concept came about. Remember, when you're making a mud brick today, the rectangular shape, the way you make those, it's through a mold. In the Hausa community, they were not using mold, they were using actual bare hands. And so there was a part when the mud was ready and it needed to be molded, they cut around 30 centimeters of a mud ball. And so this mud ball was then rolled. And when you're rolling, automatically you tend to, if you've worked with a door, you know that when you're rolling something or like a door, it tends to come into a shape either of like a circular shape or like a cylindrical shape. It's just like the organic way how the door gets rolled. And so when they were doing it, it was very easy for them to to use their hands to make the corn shape. So they ended up making the churi, which is the 30 centimeter piece of mud. It got turned into a double-sided corn, and then they lifted it up at around like half a meter height, and then they slammed it on the ground. Now that act of slamming it on the ground also helped to improve even further the compressive strength of the mud brick and making it very, very strong, closer to even like concrete block. And to me, it would be very, very interesting to measure the megapascals of Tubali mud brick in real time versus an actual concrete block. I think if we can get to that level of experiment and science, I think it can also go further into helping to de-risk this. But even just, based on like the actual physical evidence of the actual architecture existing and the process itself, as I am telling you, when you slam the mud brick, it really helps to strengthen the mud brick, and then it is sun dried. So if you follow the actual procedure of sun drying it, as I was talking about in that video, then you start to have a really good quality piece of building material that could change forever the way you build with mud. I think a lot of us still don't know or don't fully understand how we can build with mud and how we can use these indigenous building techniques to apply them today in the real world. And so I hope by sharing this that you start to have a level of curiosity and fire that pushes you to see the world in a completely different view and mindset. And that helps to slowly usher us into this new era of actually embracing new building technologies and techniques, which are not necessarily new. It's just that maybe we have not practiced them for a very long time. Look out for that video that's coming out. I think in the course of this week, I should be ready with the edits, so we will be able to finally have the full complete process of making the Tubali mud brick, because now we have the actual step-by-step process of making the brick, but then we need to understand how we make the mortar, and then how we make the wall, and also how we make the plaster. Now the plaster there's a lot there, so I'll see if I can combine everything in one video, or those are going to be two videos, but I'll let you guys know. Again, thank you as always for spending time with me, for being a part of this village, for supporting me, for encouraging me, for correcting me. I really, really love the love that I'm feeling in the community, and how you just embrace and ask questions a lot about the knowledge that I share. And it really means a lot to me to do this work, especially for my ancestors. So thank you so much. Until next time, cheers.